Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply, and this video is to bring you a closer look at the Cal Royal number TBHRC-33. This is an oil-rubbed bronze 4x4 quarter-inch radius hinge. There happens to be 3 in this package, and they must be ordered in multiples of 3 according to the extended description information down below. That's because they don't want to break open a box, is the bottom line. All right. I like Cal Royal a lot. They got a good thing going, and that's an epic understatement. No disrespect to Cal Royal. They have a mountain of available inventory. If they don't have it in stock, it's possible no one will. They do a great job with that. Their customer service is overall very good, very responsive, predictable, dependable, reliable. What I don't care for is the logo, Cal Royal USA. That logo is Cal Royal USA. That does say that's their logo. They can put whatever their logo is, Cal Royal USA. But that doesn't mean made in USA. Okay? Their logo will not say made in USA. So be mindful of the fact, and this is just my soapbox portion of this video apparently. People use USA in their logo, and I do believe that it does serve to unintentionally give the impression of a domestically manufactured product. That crown belongs to only one company in the industry that exclusively manufactures their material in the United States. So as to call attention to the fact that that's just part of their logo. This is certainly not manufactured in the United States. Now, having said that, let's move on. The TBHRC, that's a hinge, dash 33. That's a hinge by Cal Royal. That's a 4x4 hinge. It's 4-inch tall, and it's going to be 4-inch wide. The height is always the first dimension on a hinge. Okay, that's important to know so that you understand if we say that it's a 4x4 or a 4x3.5 or a 4x7, what's the first dimension? The height is the first dimension. And doors run the opposite way. Doors, the width is the first dimension, the height is the second dimension. Roof hatches, access panels, generally you're dealing with the width being the first dimension as well. A kick plate is height first and then width. And I don't really know why it changes like that, except my opinion is that it's logically, to me, what's the most important dimension? What's the one that's... They're both important, clearly. But what is the dimension that would, if you were going to say, is more important than the other? On a door, what's more important, the width or the height? The width. The height's super important, but the width would be, I would consider, primary and then secondary. In a hinge, the height is indeed the most important dimension because that directly relates to the job that the hinge is going to do. As the height changes, so does the capacity of the hinge. So does the thickness of the hinge that you're going to be working on. You could certainly have a 3.5-inch hinge will work on an 1 3/8 door. A 4-inch hinge really won't. You can force it to fit if you have 0 backset. So that first dimension tells us, a lot of things about it. You can put a 3.5 or a 4 or a 4.5 or even a 5-inch hinge on an 1 3/4 door. But that first dimension is the differentiator between all of that. You could have a 4x7 wide throw hinge, and wouldn't you want to know that your hinge isn't 7-inch tall and 4-inch wide, and that it's quite in fact 4-inch by 7-inch, which is not an unusual hinge at all. So the height is the first dimension. Be mindful of that. This is a 1/4-inch radius. That's the corner on this hinge. People will order 1/4-inch radius because they're either replacing their existing hinges and their doors and frames have a 1/4-inch radius preparation on them and are looking for just a direct replacement. Sometimes you can't easily get your hands on a radiused corner, And the option would be to square the corners out, make those corners on the hinges on the door and frame square with a hammer and chisel. People don't realize that, and even if you get into a scenario where a 1/4-inch radius isn't available, but I have square corner, all you have to do is square the corners. So a lot of people don't want to do that. For, probably the reasoning that they don't feel qualified, skilled, confident to be able to do it. It's an easy task, naturally, but I can very much understand why you wouldn't want to do it. How you achieve a 1/4-inch radius is when your door manufacturer is using a 1/2-inch router bit, and they are not going back and squaring those corners. 5/8 radius is the other radiused corner, and there are no other, well, there is actually. There is a 3/32 radius, which you'll see on aluminum storefront doors and frames, a really small radius. So small that sometimes a contractor will just put that corner onto a bench grinder and make it happen. The 5/8 radius, of course, is a much larger radius, and that's when you have an 1 1/4 bit in your equipment. 1/2 inch or 1 1/4. The difference on those bits will be how much of a tool path you have to go before you are done prepping the door or the frame. A 1/4-inch radius will require more passes, naturally. This is a residential hinge, which means that its leaf thickness is probably about 90 thousandths. Spot on. It's 0.09. It's 0.09 inch. This is made of steel. This is in a US10B oil-rubbed bronze finish. It would be appropriate to call this 640 finish, which means that it is an oil-rubbed finish over a steel base material. I am not enamored with the amount of handling marks that are on this hinge at all. There's a lot of things touched this hinge by the time it got to me, thousands and thousands of miles away from where it was made. So, being an incredible low-end residential commodity product, no one's going to really call attention to that, but that shouldn't look quite like that, in my opinion. 5-knuckle. You can see why it's 5-knuckle. This is a plain bearing hinge. There are no bearing packets at all. A ball bearing version of this would be a great idea in those applications where you were still using a thinner gauge hinge versus a 4-inch hinge that's standard commercial grade, which would be 130 thousandths. If you have your garage door, you have your heavily used doors, put ball bearing on there. It's not going to be obvious day one, but I assure you that in 10 or 20 years, one hinge is going to still look like the day it worked, and the plain bearing hinge is not going to the point where the galling that will happen, the friction that will happen, will force the hinge to fall, the door will sag, etc. So use ball bearing whenever you can. Well, use ball bearing when it's appropriate. Higher than low. If it's not like low volume use, use a the coat closet. That should have ball bearing. High volume uses. This is a full mortise hinge. You can see from the swag on the hinge leaves here that when you bring them parallel, they're meant to be mortised flush to the edge of the door and frame. Okay, that's a full mortise hinge because you've got a swag right here. Okay, if this was a full surface hinge, those leaves would be completely flush with the bottom of the barrel that's there. This is going to include screws, all wood screws. They say that they're 1224. Pardon me. They say that they're number 12 by 1 1/4. Maybe. This might be a number 10 screw. Anyway, they're appropriate for what's been prepped in the hinge leaf. There is a link below this video to a document called Template where we can review the dimensional properties of the hinge. What's there that we've not already covered is the location of the holes for the screws. If you're not sure if this is going to match, check that template. Compare it against what you already have and be sure that it all matches before you order it. This would be called the template pattern, a standardized pattern, but not every 4x4 hinge certainly will be in the template pattern. I can think of a dozen other patterns that are possible. And they will all be either different by 20 thousandths of an inch, or they'll be symmetrically opposite of this. in weird zigzag patterns as well. So double check if you're unsure if this is going to fit right in. If you're doing a new installation, I wouldn't be concerned at all as to where I was prepping the holes for the screws. Just a standard tip on these screws. These are not fly cut, so you'll need to obviously pre-drill the holes when you're installing the material. Obviously going to be available in different finishes. Those finishes are black, US10B for black, US3 for polished brass, US4 for satin brass, US10A for antique bronze, then 10B is the oil rub bronze we just looked at. The 26 is polished chrome, the 26D is satin chrome, the Duro is a dark bronze, like a powder-coated finish, and then they can do a US28, a Luma sheen, Luma. It's a sprayed aluminum finish, is what it is. Finally, there's a link below this video to the manufacturer's page, where you can pull up not only all of the Cal Royal products that we sell, but a link to the manufacturer's website, as well as a link to the full product catalog. Cal Royal is a good company, as I had mentioned earlier. They do have an ever-evolving treadmill of different logos that they use. I do like the fact that it is a smaller logo than historically. I don't want corporate advertising on my hardware. So the fact that it's petite is at least a step in the right direction. Any questions on the Cal Royal TBHRC 33 in a 10B finish or any other Cal Royal product, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you.